Hello, YouTube viewers and Transformers fans of all ages. This is the TF Fangy coming to you with my latest Transformers figure spotlight video. And today we're going to be taking a look at my first requested Transformers figure spotlight video. This was requested by fellow YouTuber Masterfar. And it was also promised, I also promised fellow YouTuber NinjaBill1000 that this would be my next figure spotlight video. So here he is, without further delay. The Transformers character of Airielbot Silverbolt. Now, the only toys of Silverbolt I have in my Transformers collection are both of the Combiner Wars toys of Silverbolt, the G1 version, which was released individually at mass retail, and also the G2 version that was sold in a boxed set with the other G2 Airielbots. So, not much else to say about these guys. They come with the exact same weapons, both black plastic. The only real difference between them is the paint job. As far as if there's any difference in the molds between the two of them, I'd say if there's any difference in the molding, it's that on one copy of Silverbolt, some joints are loose and some are tight, and on the G2 version of Silverbolt, it's some joints that were loose on the G1 version are tighter on this one, and likewise joints that were looser on this one are tighter on this one. But other than that, I don't really see any difference in the molding. One difference between them I think might be Superion's antenna, but I can't say that with absolute certainty. It might be a bit of a stretch, so. Now, technically, I do have a third toy of Silverbolt in my Transformers collection, but what it is it's a dirt cheap knockoff of Generation 1 Silverbolt, and I didn't bring it out because when I say it's a dirt cheap knockoff, it's made out of extremely fragile and flimsy plastic that feels as though it could break at any second, and it has really tight joints, and I decided to leave it permanently combined with my other knockoffs of the G1 Airielbots, as it's in my knockoff of G1 Silverbolt, so of Superion, so. Yeah, basically, by all accounts, the only toys of Silverbolt I have in my Transformers collection are the two Combiner Wars Voyager class toys. Nice. Now, there was a toy of Silverbolt released in the Transformers Universe Classics toy line back in 2008, and then the next year in 2009, before the Universe Classics toy line ended, the toy of Silverbolt released in that line, it was repainted in more Generation 1 accurate colors. But, to be honest, since that version of by the time the Transformers Universe Classics toy line was being released by Hasbro, I had watched the entirety of the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon, and since the Universe version of Silverbolt was not a combiner, I decided to pass on that version, and I waited for the day when Hasbro released a modern-day toy of Silverbolt that was a combiner, just like the original Generation 1 toy. And to be honest, I am glad that I waited until Hasbro decided to finally release the Combiner Wars toy line. Now, as far as availability of both versions of Combiner Wars Silverbolt, the G1 and G2 version, I'd say that because of the simple fact that the G2 version of Silverbolt was sold and only available in a boxed set with the other G2 Airielbots, it's the G2 version of Silverbolt may be harder for you to find. And to be honest, the G2 combiners in the Combiner Wars toy line, from what I saw when the Combiner Wars toy line was in full swing and what I saw after it ended, the three G2 combiners, Combiner Wars G2 Superion, G2 Minosaur, and even G2 Bruticus, they were the combiner toys that didn't really sell too well. So right here, as you can see, is an example of the only difference in the molding being looseness and tightness of joints. There's one flap on the combiner ports on G1 Silverbolt, it's really tight, and here on G2 Silverbolt, it's extremely loose. Ninja Bill 1000, hello to you. So I already showed off Silverbolt in his robot mode, and the only toys of Silverbolt that I own are both of the Combiner Wars versions, the G1 Silverbolt and G2 Silverbolt. I already showed them off in their individual robot modes. So here they are transformed into Superion's torso. I won't bring out the other Airielbots because as I wanted to, for my figure spotlight series, just focus solely on individual characters. And so for Combiner Transformers, I will show off for any future Combiner Transformers that make it into my figure spotlight video series. I will show off the combine mode that I use them for my combiners, but I won't actually combine them into the combiners because I'm with the fan votes of Transformers fans who have, in their opinions, and I'm one of them, that basically the combiner is an individual separate character from all the other Transformers that combine to form it. So for me, Superion is a entirely separate character from Silverbolt, in my opinion, so that's why I'm not combining Silverbolt with the other Airielbots to have a complete Superion. But just for future reference, like if I decide to do a figure spotlight video series on, say, Groove, I will show him transformed into Defensor's leg. I might show off his other limb mode for transfer to show off all his gimmicks, but I won't bring out Defensor if I were to do a review of any of the Protectobots. So now that we've seen both versions of Combiner Wars Superion as Silverbolt as Superion's torso. Or so let's see, who else is logged on here? C-Vids. And let's see. He just finished a stream of his own. Great. I'm sorry I missed that. Let's see. Oh, he did a live stream video of Combiner Wars Devastator. Well, C-Vids, I apologize for missing your own live stream. I will go check that out and see your review of Combiner Wars Devastator. So now that we've looked at Silverbolt transformed into Superion's torso, and one thing you can do is you can have weapon storage for Superion in the back. I don't know if the Superion did that in the Generation 1 cartoon where he would reach behind his back and pull out his rifle or not. But it is nice you can do that here on Combiner Wars Silverbolt. Until I get these two transformed into their alt modes. Oh, but before I actually transform them, I do want to show you one little secret about my individual copy of Combiner Wars Generation 1 Silverbolt. If you look right here at Superion's ears, you might think they look a little different or look a little off compared to what they actually are. And that's because these are the antenna ears from the individually packaged Voyager-class Scattershot toy. So I bought the individually packaged version of Scattershot, and I decided, since I liked Silverbolt more than the individually packaged Scattershot, to switch out the ear antenna, because the ears on Superion that originally were attached to Combiner Wars G1 Silverbolt, well, they weren't made out of orange plastic. They were actually made out of black plastic that was painted rubber, and because of that, they were difficult to rotate back and forth because these ears are rubbery plastic. They aren't solid plastic for safety reasons. But after I made the switch, I sold my copy of Combiner Wars Voyager-class Scattershot, and I forgot to switch the ears out, so my G1 Superion has the ears on the individually packaged Combiner Wars Scattershot. But one of the reasons I sold off Scattershot was after it was announced that Superion was being released in the Combiner Wars Toyline as a box set. I didn't see any reason to keep the individually packaged version of Scattershot. Do I regret selling that toy? No, not at all. No, but just that's one thing to know. Is that if you have both the Generation 1 Silverbolt and the individually packaged Combiner Wars version of Scattershot, I do recommend switching out the ears between Superion and also Betatron was the name of the individually packaged Scattershot Combiner. And because these ears are better and easier to handle than the ones originally given to them. So transforming Combiner Wars Silverbolt from combined mode to vehicle mode is slightly easier than transforming from combined mode to robot mode and vice versa. Now, if there's one gripe I have with Combiner Wars Silverbolt, it's that right here on his hands, you see where that metal pin is right there? Here, that spot on Superion's wrist, it doesn't actually tab into place, it just sits. It's loosely right next to the wings of Silverbolt, and so if they're just friction held until you fold down the outer halves of the wings with the Autobot logos on them, so I think they could have been more stable if there had been additional tabs for that. And flipping out his front landing gear just for now. The back landing gear are these little nubs right here that are permanently deployed right there. So there's G1 Silverbolt in his alt mode. And I love the fact that even though it isn't used anymore, Hasbro and Takara Tomy still gave Silverbolt the Concord jet for his alt mode. I can't remember if it was 2002 or 2003 when the Concord jet was permanently grounded and was retired from official commercial airline services. But basically, since the Concord is no longer flying today, that's one thing about Silverbolt that is that might upset you, is that since he now transforms into a jet aircraft that is no longer flown by humans, then as far as being a robot in disguise, Silverbolt can't quite pull that off like he did back in 1985 when he was first introduced. So that is a little upsetting, but for me it's not really a big deal, but it might be to some Transformers fans out there who really enjoy Silverbolt and want him to be a robot in disguise just like the other Airielbots. And here is G2 Silverbolt in his Concord jet mode. So all of the Generation 2 versions of the Airielbots, they were given basically a racing jet paint job. They all have racing numbers. Silverbolt's racing number is 5. It's on his tail fin and on one side of the wing. There's the G2 Autobot logo right there. And for anyone having any doubts that G2 Silverbolt is designed to compete in racing, he's got some checkered racing pattern right there. Here on his fuselage right behind the cockpit. Even though with racing, checkered patterns are usually black and white, and that's blue and white, I still think that it's what it's alluding to. So I said this in my recent video that I did right before this one, my previous video. I had said that the Transformers Generation 2 toy line, all the toys were given bright, vibrant paint jobs because that was the trend at the time during the early to mid 1990s. The toys that everyone wanted to buy at the time were all toys that were made out of bright, vibrant colors, and so for the Transformers Generation 2 toy line, Hasbro, the phrase from the Generation 1 toy line of the Transformers being robots in disguise, Hasbro just threw that out the window and ignored it in favor of giving the Transformers toys in the G2 toy line flashy paint jobs. And Silverbolt is by far no exception to that method of thinking that existed in the G2 line. So I have to move my camera back a bit to try and get them on full frame. So as far as weapon storage, what you have to do is fold up the front landing gear, and then there's two egg holes that line up with the two pegs on the bottom of Silverbolt slash Superion's rifle. And in place of the deployable landing gear, if you look there, right at the very bottom of the rifle, there's a tiny little semicircular molding on it, and that's supposed to be Silverbolt's forward landing gear. Yeah. And with G2 Silverbolt, exact same thing as the G1 version. So there are both of my toys of Silverbolt, the G1 and G2 Combiner Wars versions. If there's any gripe I have with my individual copy of G1 Silverbolt, I don't know if you've already seen it from a distance, but if you look right there, right on top of the cockpit, right in the center where the molding is, there is a splotch of black paint that got left over when Silverbolt was being painted at the factory. So that's the only gripe I have with my copy of G1 Silverbolt. And for the G2 version, again, the only gripe I have is the only real gripe I have is that one of the combiner pegs, it's this combiner peg right here, it's really loose when Silverbolt is transformed into Superion's torso. In jet mode, it gets locked into place since the fist is pushing back against it, keeping it from opening up. But those are just minor nitpicks. I'm sure there's other people who have gotten better copies of Combiner Wars G1 Silverbolt without any paint splotches. So all in all, both these versions of Silverbolt are pretty amazing toys. They are quite fun to have. And the big question, do I recommend getting both these toys of Silverbolt? Well, the G1 version, definitely, because this is the modern-day toy of Silverbolt that everyone wanted to own. It's a combiner. It forms Superion's torso. It's a Concord jet, just like the G1 toy. The paint job, it's not entirely 100% accurate, but it is better than the paint job given on past toys of Silverbolt, such as the Universe Classics version. Now, for the G2 version of Silverbolt, since it's sold in a box set with all the other Airielbots, so you basically get G2 Superion as an entire set, I only recommend getting the G2 versions of the Airielbots if you're a fan of the Generation 2 line, and if you want to get it for the reason I got it, which was to go completist on the Combiner Wars toy line. Superion was the second to last toy in the Combiner Wars toy line I needed to go completist and have all the Combiner Wars toys. The very last one that I got was Minosaur, G2 Minosaur to clarify. But yes, I only recommend getting the G2 version of Superion, which includes Silverbolt, if you want to go completist on the Combiner Wars toy line, or if you want to see Superion in his G2 colors. I did do a more in-depth review of Superion and the G2 Airielbots a while back, so go back. I can see that video if you're interested. So I think I'll wrap up this latest figure spotlight video on Silverbolt. Thank you, Master Far, for requesting it. Thank you, Ninja Bill 1000, for your dedication, and thank you to everyone who logged into the live stream chat. Thank you, CEVids. Thank you, Mr. V Games and Toys. Thank you, Ninja Bill 1000, and thank you to everyone else who continues to support my channel. This has been the Transformers Figure Spotlight video on Airielbots Silverbolt. I apologize for not having more toys of Silverbolt in my collection, but to be honest, when I watched the Generation 1 cartoon and I saw how Silverbolt was depicted as being afraid of heights, it made me kind of laugh at the decision to have Silverbolt be the team leader of the Airielbots, yet at the same time, he was afraid of heights, so he actually preferred to walk and fly low to the ground instead of flying up high with the other Airielbots. So that was unique character design for Silverbolt, but again, to be honest, I do like Silverbolt. I don't hate him. I don't think he's a lousy character. I do have such a I do have I do appreciate him, but I don't have as much admiration for him as I do to other characters such as Optimus Prime and Ultra Magnus. So thank you all once again for tuning in. This has been the TFN Geek. Please like, comment, subscribe. And this is my final farewell. Have a great day. Transform and roll out.